We thought Keigetsu was the villain. Then we learned she was a victim too. I mean, she made terrible choices, stole Reirin's body, and did things that are honestly difficult to justify. But the more we learn about her past, the more obvious it becomes that she was never the one truly pulling the strings. In the previous video, we saw Keigetsu finally collapse from the fever and lose consciousness. But while her body was lying there, her mind took her back to the darkest moments of her childhood. So since she was little, Keigetsu's own parents despised her. Whenever her presence annoyed them, they would lock her inside a tiny dark room and leave her there for hours. She hated that darkness and didn't want them to leave her. But her mother told her that her face was horrible and that simply looking at her made her feel disgust. Her father ran away and didn't even bother looking at her again. Eventually, their deaths destroyed the family. Her mother tormented her first, but then abandoned her to find ways out of the debt. Keigetsu would scratch on the door, begging them to open it. But nobody came. With absolutely nobody to talk to, she began talking to the fire. And somehow, the flames seemed to answer her. That's how she discovered that she could control them. Later, while going through the ancient books her father had kept, she discovered that her ability actually was a Taoist dark art. So she started practicing it, but when she finally mastered it, she discovered her parents hanging from the ceiling. At first, she was terrified, but then she started laughing because throughout her entire life, no one had ever come to help her. Now she thought that no one else could hurt her either, but only if she were the first to intimidate them. Not long after that, the Noble Consort Shu heard that a young girl had been left completely alone and decided to take her under her protection. For the first time in Keigetsu's life, someone looked at her with something resembling kindness. She praised her extraordinary talent for the dark arts, but that kindness didn't go far. She never defended her, and she never stopped the court ladies from mocking her. Then one day, Shu casually mentioned that it'd be better if she used her magic to switch bodies with Reirin, believing that even the noble Shu wanted a maiden like Reirin. She decided to take Reirin's place, hoping all her suffering would disappear. But the moment her soul entered Reirin's body, she felt as though she were dying. She didn't understand what was happening. All she could see were countless people staring at her, cold, silent eyes, with nobody to save her. She thought who would ever want to save someone like her. But then Reirin appeared. She was smiling, a smile so warm that it seemed capable of melting every bit of darkness around her. She reached out her hand and called her name. Then, just like that, the nightmare disappeared and her fever finally broke. When she opened her eyes, the first thing she saw was the crying faces of the ladies in waiting surrounding her bed. Everyone was overjoyed that Lady Reirin had finally awakened. One of them mentions how Lady Keigetsu, meaning Reirin, had spent the entire night firing the bow of warding without stopping. How she refused everything and didn't even care if the bow was tearing her own body apart. The only thing she cared about was saving Reirin. And hearing that, all the rage, guilt, fear, and confusion Keigetsu had been carrying exploded at once. For a moment, she completely forgot that she was supposed to continue pretending to be the court butterfly. That was when Tuetsu entered, and although her expression remained perfectly calm and respectful, she already figured out everything. The two had a very gentle conversation, and after that, Tuetsu left. The moment Keigetsu was alone, she realized that she was done for. Because Tuetsu will tell the crown prince everything, she fell to her knees, terrified that everyone would find out the truth. And as she blamed herself for losing control, she remembered Reirin again, that warm smile and gentle voice, the way she had promised that, together, they would overcome every obstacle. She began to cry, wondering how Reirin could always find a way to be so beautiful. She kept repeating that she hated her, but the more she said it, the more obvious it became that she didn't hate her at all. What she felt was admiration, an admiration so deep that it had slowly turned into envy. She had always wanted to become someone like Reirin, but now she had Reirin's face, and yet she still didn't have her ability to learn or her strong will. Then she thought about how she had survived, figuring that it must be because of Reirin as well. But even that didn't completely explain the illness. And that's when Keigetsu noticed the elegant incense burner gifted to her by the Kin clan. She heard rustling sounds coming from it and moved closer. Suddenly, a tiny spark shaped like a spider shot out of the burner. It scared her, but after that, everything became clear. It was Venom-craft, one of the most terrifying techniques within the dark arts, a forbidden ritual in which insects were sacrificed and used to represent human life. The insects would devour one another and become increasingly poisonous. Then, through an ancient incantation, the curse would awaken, and slowly, the victim would die. Very few people still possess the knowledge necessary to perform it. The first was her, and the other was Noble Consort Shu. She knew that because she herself was the one who had taught her all about it. It's kind of sad because I really didn't think that she would be an evil character. Even Reirin believed that she was a kind person. That's why she genuinely looked surprised when Kusetsu told her the truth. By the way, this happened after Captain Shinyu left, and Reirin was thinking about how Lady Geiyu didn't even exist, how the hairpin and ivory robe were stolen. She thought about the possibility that both had been used to frame Keigetsu. With that in mind, she lit the candle, hoping that the flame could connect her with Keigetsu through the body swap spell as she needed to speak with her. The flame grew, and suddenly a wave of fire and light filled the entire room. Keigetsu appeared, crying and broken, asking her for help. While she was excited about how perfect it was, Keigetsu, trapped in a terrible and completely hopeless situation, wondered how she was always enjoying herself. Looking at her, Reirin asked if she is alright and whether she drank the medicinal brew she prepared to cure her. Keigetsu confirms that she drank it, along with other similar scented medicines, but it clearly doesn't matter anymore. She explained that after Toetsu came in and realized that she was a fake, nobody had come to see her. Then she starts panicking and crying, terrified that the truth is getting out and that soon the Empress and the Crown Prince will find out and sentence her to death. Reirin suggests that they switch bodies before anyone finds out, but Keigetsu argues that it won't work and that she is safer staying where she is. Even Toetsu wouldn't dare hurt her while she is in Reirin's body, whereas going back would only increase the chances of them putting her to death. Refusing to let fear paralyze them, Reirin insists that they can reason through it, but Keigetsu completely freaks out, screaming that she is done for, that this is the end, and that she is terrified of being punished, killed, and forsaken by everyone. Reirin reaches out to reassure her, telling her not to say such things, and reminding her that her senior Noble Consort Shu is sure to be there for her. Hearing this, Keigetsu laughs bitterly and tells her how she had realized that she had always been a wretched girl, used and tossed aside by others. She shares the wish she made during the festival, asking why she is condemned to be wretched, always terrified, and never safe. She thought she could use Taoist arts to make people obey her, but it was all in vain. She wanted to disappear. Humiliating and pathetic as it was, she still wanted to be Reirin because she wanted to be the butterfly for once and feel what it was like to be loved. Now she couldn't even hate it, as she was allowed to wallow in her own wretchedness. She finds it amazing how things can change, and that now that they have switched places, she finds herself hating her old self even more. Then while crying, she asks Reirin to just end her life. In response, she gently ruffles her face, asking why she's always so extreme, completely shocking Keigetsu. She suggests that Keigetsu could start with a simple apology instead of asking for death, saying that for all her fierceness, she's always so extreme. Laughing slightly, supposing that she should expect that from a fire-blessed shrine maiden. Flustered with embarrassment, Keigetsu literally burns with flame and demands to know what's so funny. And to that, Reirin admits that she is fond of her intensity. Keigetsu thinks she is being teased, but Reirin insists that it's true and says that she doesn't have to be so harsh on herself. She points out that Keigetsu has several charms. Most importantly, she can use Taoist art. Along with that, she has a strong backbone and a boldness that makes her emotions so powerful that they can be painful to watch. Unsure whether she is being honest or sarcastic, Keigetsu listens as she says that by now she must have realized how cruel her body can be. But Keigetsu never wished for death just to end the agony. She points out that despite the immense suffering and weakness of her body, she didn't waver. She stuck to her wishes despite suffering through so much, and to Reirin, that counts as having a backbone. Surprised, Keigetsu reminds her that she literally tried to kill her, but she brushes it off, saying that she didn't kill her. Instead, she showed her happiness by lending her her body. Then I think she tried to do an evil laugh and a smile, playing her role as a villainess, telling Keigetsu that she can try her best, but she can't bring misfortune to others, encouraging her to cast away her woes and cheer up. Keigetsu is still struggling to understand what is happening and suspects that she is putting on some kind of dreadful act. but still she apologizes for doing her wrong. She instantly accepts the apology, saying that she is grateful to her as she has shouldered nearly 10 days of sickness for her. This reminds Keigetsu of what she discovered, and she tells her that her illness over the past few days, as well as the body swap itself, was all planned by Noble Consort Shu. As I said, she is genuinely shocked because she previously thought of Consort Shu as a kind-hearted and beloved soul. She then explains the Venom-craft curse, detailing how the poison and incense are just the beginning. She explains that she wasn't saved by medication but by the bow of warding, which can only mean that her illness was caused by a curse. And that curse was found in the incense given to her as a gift by Lady Sika. So it gets confirmed that the Noble Consort Shu was behind everything, and her goal was to get rid of both of them at the same time. She tells her everything, including Shu's joke about switching bodies and the realization that while she was the one who chose to swap bodies, Consort Shu was obviously behind everything. Reirin instantly asks if Consort Shu had made any other suggestions, and she reveals that they were both meant to perish from the swap. Reirin would be gone by the lion's judgment, while Keigetsu would be killed by the Venom-craft. But obviously none of that actually happened. Reirin can understand having ill will toward an opposing clan, but she still can't understand why Consort Shu would want to target Keigetsu too. So Keigetsu explains that she was nothing more than an expendable loose thread, and that Consort Shu had picked her up for the sole purpose of using her powers. She didn't care whether she lived or died. As long as she managed to kill Reirin, losing her in the process didn't matter. Reirin worriedly asks why she would go so far, and Keigetsu points out that it is because of her talent. Though before she begins explaining, Lily suddenly announces that the Crown Prince Koyumi has arrived. Hearing that, both of them are completely shocked because they weren't expecting him to visit. The real Keigetsu immediately panics, thinking that he must already know about the body swap and everything that happened, but Reirin assures her that it will be fine, because if he already knew about the body swap, he would have come to see Keigetsu first instead of coming to see her. She's still worried, but Reirin gives her an encouraging thumbs up. If she's going to call herself an Adept Villainess, then she should give her best performance. And that's how they kind of form an alliance. However, after this, the Crown Prince does realize that they have swapped bodies and everything that happened. But at the same time, news arrives that the Empress has also fallen sick, and you can probably guess who is behind it. But I feel like that's a separate story, because the Empress and Consort Shu have a lot of history together, and I don't want to rush through all of that in this video, so I'll talk about them in the next video. Because honestly, there isn't really any true villain in this story. Even Consort Shu has been through things that made her the way she is and caused her to dislike people the way that she does. Again, that doesn't mean they shouldn't get the punishment they deserve, but still I like the idea that in a lot of stories, the people we see as villains aren't actually villains at heart. They're just broken people who made terrible choices. And I think that's exactly what is happening in this story as well. Anyways, that's it for this video. I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for listening to me. Take care of yourself and goodbye.
I don't really wanna hurt you, but I can't control the pain. If you're sticking by my side, maybe we could be okay. Okay, maybe you could be the change.